Good morning, everyone. So yes, a month ago I returned on June 8th from my trip to the Rotary International Convention. So this is my second one. As those of you who were here last year, I came back and brought a report on the convention in Melbourne and my trip to Sydney as well. So off we go. So my goal is to bring the convention to all of you. But as Lee said, I would love for you to join me next year. So keep that in mind. So Rotary International always selects first-class cities all around the globe to host their annual convention. And it's typically the last week of May. And the first Rotary Club was chartered in Singapore in 1930, and now they have over 40 Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs. So when you go to a convention, one of the things that's always a constant is the House of Friendship. And it's really fun to see people from all over the world. We're in over 200 countries visiting, exchanging banners, club banners, exchanging business cards. I even received 2 hand-quilted coasters from a woman who's a past district governor from Malaysia. And that's what she gives to people. And it was in a beautiful little gift bag, 2 coasters. And when she really connects with someone at a convention, that's her gift to them. And so I was honored to receive one of her gifts. Just made me think maybe we should have a gift like that too for next year. So at House of Friendship, and they have a section called the Rotary Village, there's various informational booths. And there's always a booth for the Rotary Foundation, and that gives you an opportunity to learn more about the foundation, ways that you can get involved, the projects that they are managing, such as our End Polio Now, Polio Plus, that we started in 1988. So there's people there that are informed in all of these areas. So it's really interesting, very informational, and you can strike up a conversation with people who are like-minded and who are interested in learning more as well. They also have a booth and people who work for the Rotary magazine. And when I approached the booth and mentioned who I was and what club I'm with, they said, "We just did an article on your club." So we're known in Rotary International with the 1.4 million Rotarians around the globe. And if they didn't know us before, they know us now because of the magazine article. So one of the things that we discussed at length in both the general sessions, which is all 14,000 attendees, and the breakout sessions, is how will we create lasting change, both as a club, as a district, as individual Rotarians. And so back to the point earlier about the endowment, so it gives you a chance to learn more about the annual fund, the endowment, the 7 areas of focus, a Polio Plus, all the different ways we can get involved to support the foundation and to create lasting change. Then there's a booth on creating your own personal Rotary experience and how can you enhance it. We have Rotary fellowships, we have interest groups, we have Rotary action groups. I'm a member of the menstrual hygiene Rotary action group. Actually, there's 3 of them. There's dozens because regionally and by zone around the globe, but I'm on WhatsApp groups with several of them. And as you can see, they've created seating areas around each of these areas so you can sit down and have a conversation and share ideas and experiences. And then it's how to create your own global impact with your club and as an individual. And I encourage everyone, as they encouraged all of us at the convention, that every single member should be on our Rotary International website. And we should be learning from all of these resources that are available to us 24/7. There's the Learning Center. There's the Brand Center. So any of us who have to work with the logo and the annual theme logo each year, what's the type font, what colors are approved, and so forth. The Grant Center, Lee and Carla and I submitted as we started our project for the hospice project several weeks back. And we got our number and we've started the application. That's how you do it, is on that website. And then I'm excited that they're going to be adding a service project center portion of the website as well, which will be very informative. And then every year we have a peace park at the convention. And as you all know, we have our own peace monument here in Parque Juarez that was dedicated 8 years ago. And the first peace center created by Rotary International was announced 25 years ago in Singapore. So here we were in Singapore 25 years later, and they're very excited to announce the next opening of a peace center will be in Istanbul, Turkey. And they're going to have a peace conference next February to celebrate that new center. And then we talked about Peace Fellows. There's Peace Fellowships. There's up to 130 Peace Fellowships funded 100% every year. And it's in collaboration with universities around the world. So far, to date, we have over 1,800 graduates in 140 countries with Peace Fellows. And then in the House of Friendship, we have booths. There's over 200 total, and you can take all day, and that's usually what I do my first day is I visit all of the booths, so I can do it before it gets real busy. And you get to meet these people. They have literature to hand you. They have QR codes to provide for you. And so this is just one of many, many representatives. So it was the beer, people who enjoy beer, people who enjoy wine, whiskey, gin, motorcycles, quilting, tennis, golf, yachting, you name it. There's all sorts of interest groups and fellowships in Rotary, and you can join with like-minded people. Then there's the ones that are cause-based. And as you can see, these were all color coordinated this year. It was very, very well done. The convention's always well planned and executed. This year it was color coordinated. So the cause-based, in this case the blue, was fighting human trafficking through scholarships. And there were many other projects as well that Rotary collaborates on these projects around the world. And then we have many action groups. So this action group was the one for menstrual health and hygiene. And then Days for Girls had a booth nearby in that same section. And Days for Girls is the company from whom we buy our reusable menstrual hygiene kits for our girls in our classes. And then this year we had a relatively new action group, the one on mental health care. And the mental health initiatives, you'll hear more information. That was such a big priority for our outgoing president, Gordon McKinley from Scotland, because he lost his brother Ian in 2014 as he took his own life. So that's how mental health initiatives became such an important process and focus for Rotary this year. And Gordon actually hosted one of the 15-minute chats. So you could go and chat with leaders and subject matter experts on various topics. And so he was one of the leaders this year. And then our friend Nick Frankel, who was here with us in early May and went to the district conference with us, he manned the booth with 3 other gentlemen for the Action Group for Community Economic Development. And so he is an expert on the 6 pillars of microfinance, and he provided Beverly, who's on the microfinance committee here for our club, he provided her lots of good information in person, and then she's also reviewing what she finishes with her hip surgery. She'll be back on the website and absorbing all the information that's available. Then we have organizations with which Rotary collaborates that are other international organizations, such as the Disaster Aid International. We also partner with the Peace Corps, with Habitat for Humanity, with Shelterbox, and other organizations. And then it's always very interesting to meet and to get to know people from around the world, especially if they're dressed in their native garb. And it's just very fascinating to learn more about their cultures and traditions. And I find that they oftentimes, their club might have a jacket or a shirt, or their district. I've seen some from South Korea, and there's 100 people. So I don't believe they're in the same club. I think they come from the same district, but they have matching shirts and jackets. And from Singapore, just lovely. And then to the left is Jennifer Jones, who was our first female president of Rotary International for the year of 22-23. And to the right is our new president, Stephanie Urchik from Pennsylvania. And they were readily available. You could walk through and have a chat with them. And Gordon McKinley was available too for chats. And the entire agenda, being that Rotary International is very environmentally conscious, your entire agenda was on the Rotary Convention app. Everything's on your phone, nothing's printed. So it's a phenomenal way that they design it and execute it. And you take the app and you have all your general sessions, and then because there are hundreds of breakout sessions throughout the 5-day period, you kind of have to pick and choose. What are your priorities? And so each of the last 2 years, I've said, okay, what does midday, what does our club need? What can we most benefit from? And in some cases, I'd want to be in 4 sessions at the same time slot, so I might do half of one and half of another and try to get notes from other people. But there were over 300 speakers at this convention between the general session and the breakout sessions. But you created your own schedule. So to the left is an example on my phone, what my schedule looked like each day. And there was entertainment, and there were yoga classes in the morning, and you just kept your schedule. You could even set it to have a 15-minute warning. And then to the right is an example of the 15-minute chats that were in the House of Friendship. And there were signs outside of each of the breakout rooms with information about which of the sessions were in English or which ones were in Mandarin or in Spanish. Most of the sessions were in English, and they provided simultaneous translation in 7 different languages. But I did attend one in Espanol. And then this is always an opportunity at the convention to make new friends and see old friends. So to the left is the current president of the club in Kitchener-Conestoga, the club that Brian Stortz, who's a longtime friend of our club, who's supporting several of our programs, and that club has been a supporter of our ISMA Deaf School for years. The gentleman on the far right, my right, is their current president, and the taller gentleman is the past president of the other club in Conestoga, Ontario, Canada. And then the other photo, Pepe, our past district governor, and his wife Rosie were there, and that's the session I attended in Espanol. And then our friend Nick Frankel was on a panel with 3 other individuals on the village savings groups. And it was fascinating. We learned so much, and people had excellent questions after their panel discussion was over. And I have pages and pages of notes just from that one session. It's very interesting. And he is fundraising now for 13 $30,000 amounts that he wants to be able to give to communities. So they want to be able to give $30,000 US to each community that they're supporting, including in Africa. And this helps to fund loans that can be available to individuals to start businesses. And they also teach them how to save themselves within their community. So they can put money in of their own, but it helps when $30,000 is coming into the community from Rotary as well to kickstart their new business loans. It's just a fascinating program, and we're very supportive of his project. And then throughout the breakout sessions, many of them were on Rotary's action plan. And a message we heard loud and clear at the convention is that every district and every club should have a strategic action plan. So that was a good message for all of us. And that's how we're going to increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participant engagement, and increase our ability to be adaptable. And then our Rotary vision statement came up, of course, every day in various ways, the general sessions and the breakout sessions, just to ensure that we were coming back full circle, that we're always keeping our vision statement and our mission in mind. This gentleman, his name's Freddie, and he, as a young man, was shot. And they didn't think he was going to live, but he did live. He was paralyzed, 100% paralyzed. He couldn't talk, and he had a caregiver 24/7. And with some help of some very inspiring people, he decided he wanted to live. And so he has written a book. And the premise of his book is that we are all works in progress, and each scattered piece of our lives is precious and worth celebrating and embracing. So I encourage you, his book is called Beauty in the Broken Pieces. And I don't recall his last name. I just know his first name's Freddie, but if you look up the title, you'll find it. They had already run out of copies when I went to buy one, The House of Friendship, but I think they're available from Amazon. But what he challenged us was with the question, what challenge or experience or event has impacted you the most in your life? And how did you deal with it? Or how are you still dealing with it? And these were two ladies of a group who are have executed and are managing mental health initiatives around the globe. Some of them are in the Philippines, some in Malaysia, and some in Guatemala. And we got to hear wonderful testimonials from some of the counselors that work in their programs and some of the beneficiaries. This woman was very interesting, Dr. Palava Gowda. And she lives in Montgomery, Maryland. Her mom died in childbirth having her. And she is a mom, as you can see in the English subtitles, and a medical doctor. And she is an Army veteran, and she's a survivor of depression. And she shared with us that the Army has created safety in numbers for safe spaces. And she said maybe Rotary should have safe spaces as well, as we're really focusing on mental health. But she had a fascinating story to tell. Then this gentleman by the name of Nacho Dean, let's just love his name, whose focus has been on conserving nature and protecting the environment. And he was the first person to walk around the world and swim between 5 continents. It took him 3 years, and he traversed through 41 countries. And he did this to raise awareness for conservation of nature. So he's collaborated with the Rotary's End Plastic Soup initiative, and he's documented the impact of plastic pollution and climate change on mental health. And he says 99% of humans breathe unhealthy air, which causes anxiety, stress, and depression. And lead in food and water affects 1 in 3 children around the world. And there's scientific evidence of environmental impact on mental health. And there's a correlation between the health of the environment and human health. This woman, Claire Chang, is co-founder of the Banyan Group in Singapore, and she's a member of the Singapore Parliament. She started in Interact 55 years ago, and she and her husband developed Laguna Phuket in Thailand, and they won all sorts of environmental cleanup awards. She collaborates with other NGOs, with international organizations, and with Rotary clubs for collective efficiencies. And she developed self-sustainable environmental conservation. They now manage 85 hotels. They have 15,000 associates. They don't call them employees, they call them associates, in 24 countries. They've created jobs. They provide childcare for these associates. They support 200 craft villages by buying items for the hotels from these 200 craft villages. And their focus is in entrepreneurship, job creation, and diversity. So this is some photos before and after. So that's the land that needed an environmental cleanup in 1983. And then the below picture is what it looks like today. Quite a difference, providing 15,000 jobs. This next gentleman was fascinating, and I met him at dinner one evening at a restaurant. His name is Jack Sim. Oh, let me back up just a moment. One thing I want to share about Claire is that her grandmother left China and immigrated to Singapore for survival. Her mom fought for freedom. Claire fights for gender equality. Her daughter seeks self-actualization, and her granddaughter will claim that nothing is impossible. So this gentleman, Jack Sim, goes by Mr. Toilet. He owned a number of businesses and technology, and he sold all of his businesses, and with the money, he created the World Toilet Organization. He said that human waste, designated by this little emoji here, is one of the taboo subjects that people around the globe don't always feel comfortable discussing. So you talk about mental health, gender equality, vaccinations, and human waste is one of those topics that people find difficult to discuss. So this is Jack Sim. So he created the World Toilet Organization, and he teaches people and governmental authorities that toilets are the best medicine because disease prevention is cheaper than cures. So he's gotten into some governments, especially in India, and he's convinced them to invest. And he's convinced the Department of Health, the Minister of Health, to purchase 110 million toilets in India. It's just unbelievable the impact that he's had. He has started 15 world toilet colleges in India, because in India, there's a profession called sewer divers. And people are sewer divers. They dive into the sewers to maintain the systems. And as you probably not find surprising, sewer divers die by the age of 40. So he developed a method to maintain sewers with above ground technology and equipment. In 4 years, he has raised $4 billion US for water treatment plants and toilets throughout the world, many of these in India. The UN, thanks to Mr. Toilet, the UN founded World Toilet Day, adapted by 193 countries, and he's converted 17 schools with their toilets from holes in the ground to flush toilets. And he also partners with the Gates Foundation. So this is what he was finding. These were holes in the ground, not sanitary by any stretch of the imagination. And this is the World Toilet Organization that he created with the Minister of Health in India. First summit was in 2001. And look at the legacy this gentleman is leaving. And he's not an old man. I think he's probably in his 40s. But he was a real pleasure to meet. He gets a kick out of being called Mr. Toilet. This next gentleman, Obi, was born in Nigeria, and his father was a Rotarian, and he taught him the Rotary principle of service above self. And so he has spent a career in global health, but now he's with the Gates Foundation. And he's committed to ending polio, HIV, fighting malaria, and all the various programs that Rotary and Gates Foundation are working on together. And they have established the Rotary's Healthy Communities Challenge with World Health Vision and the Gates Foundation. And he shared with us a video from Bill Gates himself, which was very interesting to hear from Bill. So Bill says in 1988, when Rotary founded Polio Plus, 350,000 people were diagnosed with polio every year. By 2023, there were only 12 wild polio cases in the countries of Afghanistan and Pakistan, because they were the very last 2 countries to let Rotary and local community health workers in. In 2024, this year, they're celebrating the 10th anniversary of polio-free India. And Bill Gates said, the world owes Rotary much gratitude for financial support and the support of its community healthcare workers, because many of those healthcare workers around the globe, as I shared last year, have their lives at risk, because oftentimes they're killed, because people in some of these countries don't trust. Even if they're women and even if they are from that country, they just don't, there's a lack of trust. So they put their lives on the line every day. So the Gates Foundation continues its 2-to-1 match up to $50 million a year to help us, Rotary, end polio. So towards the end of the convention, at the last general session, Gordon McGinley is giving his final words of wisdom and his final thoughts as the outgoing president, and Stephanie Urchin is coming on board as the new president. And there's always a ceremony where they pass the banner. And Gordon's final words were his continuing to champion mental health initiatives. Again, in honor and memory of his brother Ian. And Stephanie is continuing the focus on mental health, belonging, fellowship, inclusion, and compassion. Gordon says true continuity involves embracing change by using the Rotary Action Plan, and continuity is about transformation. And so Gordon is asking that we create mental health Rotary Action Group chapters in every district throughout Rotary. And I wanted to share with you some of my key, aside from what I've shared, some other key takeaways. Peace building isn't about stopping wars. It's about using our 7 areas of focus to prevent wars and create a more peaceful world. Education should be deemed a fundamental human right. We need to attach the same value to girls as we do to boys. With polio, Rotary identified specific countries and communities where polio still existed. We need to do the same for lack of education and gender equality around the world. We need to be story makers, not just storytellers. All districts and Rotary clubs should have strategic action plans. We need to prioritize each club's projects, focus on the clubs and its members' strengths, ensure that we're creating sustainable, lasting change that continue after the Rotary funds are no longer present. Needs assessments are absolutely critical, and we need baseline figures. Identify consistent and best practices, measure results, and demonstrate impact. Develop partnerships with other NGOs and Rotary clubs. And pertaining to membership, are you educating people about Rotary before they join? Conduct annual member surveys for well-being and satisfaction. And remember that attrition can be healthy for a club. Every member should use the Rotary International website tools, including the Learning Center. Consider district-level involvement and leadership, as Lee is doing this year. The Rotary Foundation awarded 1,088 global grants last year. The Rotary Endowment goal is to be $2.025 billion by 2025. And the 2024 Program of Scale Award went to Farmers in India program, learning how to produce much of the world's wheat and rice using less water. And finally, the Rotary Foundation has funded 274 disaster response programs totaling $8 million through the years. So that takes us to next year. They always announce where the next convention is going to be, and actually I know where the next 6 conventions are going to be. So the next one is going to be in Calgary. And I encourage all of you, especially since it's much closer than Australia and Singapore, I encourage you to go online and really consider joining me. I've already registered. What they do is they incentivize you. If you register for the next conference, when you're at that convention, you get a 40% discount. And then every couple months, that discount goes less and less. So there's another discount that ends December 31st. There's another one, I believe, that ends in March. And then if you register the month before, you're going to be paying 100%. So I encourage you to give it thought now and put these dates on your calendar. It's 3 weeks later than it normally is. Typically, it's been the last week of May. So this year, it's 2025, it's June 21st to the 25th. So one of the exciting things about attending a Rotary convention is that you can have the opportunity to visit a city and perhaps a country that you've never visited before. And that's part of the excitement for me, because I worked really hard for 37 years and didn't have time to travel for fun. I only traveled for business. So this was fun. This structure is the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, the iconic structure. You see it in all their marketing pieces now and all their tourism pieces. And the 3 vertical structures are the hotel. That's where we stayed. The convention center and the casino are below the ground level. The white roof type structures are the top of a 3-level luxury mall. There's an infinity pool and 2 restaurants and an observation deck on the roof. And the white structure that looks like a hand is the Art and Science Center. This project cost 8 billion Singaporean dollars, which was $7 billion, and it opened in 2010. And this is what it looks like from the roof. It's quite the view. This is the Apple Store, which is in the bay, and you have to walk across a bridge to get there. This is the Louis Vuitton store, which also has accessible through a walkway with the Art and Science Center in the back. And at night, they have a fountain and color and music show twice every night. It was just gorgeous. I think I took 100 pictures just of the nighttime shows. And this is the Gardens by the Bay, which was just named one of the top 10 tourist destinations in the world. And this leads out to the port of Singapore. And this is what it looks like at night. And that's what the trees lit up look at night. It's just a fascinating, I definitely recommend a trip to Singapore. And then I took a day and a half to tour after the convention was over to learn some more about Singapore. And it's a fascinating country. It's very young. It used to be part of Great Britain. Then it was part of Malaysia from 1963 until 1965 when it became an independent country. It has 6 million people, half of which are citizens. And the primary religion is Buddhist. And this was a Buddhist temple we saw there. 80% of people who live in Singapore are on government subsidized housing. It's a very high cost of living city and country. 20% of their pay goes back into a housing fund, and all employers have to contribute to the housing fund as well. The reason they split from Malaysia was that they wanted diversity, and they wanted religious diversity. So they were not only the Hindu temples, but this was an Anglican church. I saw a Methodist church. Beautiful orchid gardens. This is the famous Raffles Hotel, which used to be a private home and is now the only all-suite hotel in Singapore and hence the most expensive hotel in Singapore, which is known for two things, the iconic doorman and the Singapore sling. So I've never paid $39 for a drink before. So it was a one-time thing, and they don't serve food. They only serve peanuts, and as you probably know, littering, chewing gum, graffiti are all illegal in Singapore, and it shows because it's a very clean city and a very clean country. But this is the only place where they not only encourage, they expect you to throw your peanut shells on the floor. And since I was so close, I decided to take a quick hop over to Bali. And Bali is a 90% Hindu country. So it was fascinating. This in the back is one of the most popular markets, craft markets in Ubud, which is the center of culture in Bali. And all I can say about the traffic is it was orchestrated chaos. And there are no pedestrian crosswalks. You have to take your life in your hands and play a game of Frogger to get across the street. And traffic's going 4 to 6 directions simultaneously, and they don't let you they don't stop like they do in San Miguel. No one lets anyone cross over. This is the Ubud Water Palace, which I toured. There are over 20,000 temples in Bali. This was my tour guide, Margot, one day. I had a 12-hour tour just to myself, because no one else signed up for it. And I learned a lot about his culture, the family, what they do for a living. It was just fascinating. And this is the Ubud monkey forest. And you're not supposed to make eye contact because they're very aggressive. But my guide knew what he was doing, so he might have had some snacks. So I could have a monkey encounter. And I watched them plant rice, and these are the white rice terraces for which Bali is well known. And I went to Nusa Penida, which is another island, because I'd been in Bali for 3 days and hadn't seen the ocean. So I spent a day at Nusa Penida. Very, very crowded. It was very difficult to get pictures without several hundred people in my photos. And this I just shared to show the cultural diversity of these islands in Indonesia, because people are coming from different cultures and what they can wear on the beach differs greatly. And there were some beautiful, it's very crowded, very hot and humid, but it is beautiful views. So that's my tour of Singapore and Bali.